After going through the toughest challenge that the game can throw at you, you finally reach the top of the volcano. You're greeted with 2 golden walnuts, a prismatic shard, and an easy place to fish for lava eels. And the forge. Access to the forge is one of the biggest upgrades you'll get in the entire game. This will affect all aspects of the game, from combat all the way to farming. There's 3 main things that you can do here: forging your weapons, enchanting your tools, and combining rings. We're going to go over each of them in depth, including every individual enchantment and stat increase. Forging weapons is pretty simple. All you need is a weapon, any gem, and some cinder shards. Your first weapon upgrade will cost 10 cinder shards, your second 15, and your third 20. In addition to that, each gem has a different stat that it'll increase. An amethyst will increase the knockback or weight by 1 level. An aquamarine increases the critical hit chance by 4.6% per level. An emerald will increase weapon speed by 2 points, and if you upgrade speed 3 times, the 3rd level gives you 3. A jade increases the critical hit damage by 10%. A ruby increases all damage by 10% to both minimum and maximum damage. And topaz increases defense by 1 level. If you use a diamond, it'll only cost 10 cinder shards total. It'll give you 3 upgrades, but they will be random. So let's see what we get here. From that, we got increased crit power, increased knockback, and increased damage, all for the price of 10 cinder shards. As always, you can find all of the gems in the mines. At this point, you've probably hit floor 120, so any gem can be found on any floor. In addition to that, cinder shards can be found in the volcano dungeon, either through knocking out certain monsters or from cinder shard nodes. And you may be wondering, since cinder shards are a fairly rare material, is this the best use for them? Well, they only have a few other uses. One, they can be used to buy the Cinder Clown shoes from the dwarf in the volcano dungeon on floor 5. The Cinder Clown shoes have the 2nd best defense of any footwear in the game, but the best footwear in the game, the Dragon Scale boots, don't have any immunity bonus, which shortens the amount of time that you have a debuff. So many people could consider it the best footwear in the game. That'll cost you 100 cinder shards. Other than that, you will need 50 cinder shards to buy the deluxe retaining soil recipe from the island trader, and then you'll also need 20 more if you want to construct the ostrich incubator once you've completed all of the fossil hunting. That being said, other than needing the recipe for perfection, I do think that the forge is better than all of those other upgrades that you can get. Yes, the Cinder Clown shoes give you a defense upgrade, but if you want, you can just put in a sword and give it 3 defense upgrades with topaz. It's that simple, and it'll cost you a lot less in the end. There is one last thing that you can do with weapons. If you want, you can take any weapon and replace it with the image of another weapon. This is particularly good if you just don't like the look of the Galaxy Sword, which is one of the best weapons in the game. You can make it look like anything. Make it look like the Obsidian Edge. As you can see, it's still a Galaxy Sword, despite having the appearance of the Obsidian Edge. I do also personally like the look of the Forest Sword, so that could be a cool adjustment as well. That'll only cost you 10 cinder shards. The Galaxy weapons also have something a little special just for them. In the game, there are items called Galaxy Souls. There's only one way to get these Galaxy Souls, and that's from Mr. Key's shop in the Walnut Room. If you forge these Galaxy Souls into a Galaxy Sword 3 times, you will come out with an Infinity Blade. The same thing will happen if you use a Galaxy Dagger or a Galaxy Hammer. You'll have the Infinity version of those weapons as well. These weapons are the strongest in the entire game. And the best part, you can still continue to forge them after that. You can give them increased speed or attack power, whatever you want. Personally, if it were me, I'd say use whatever upgrades you want, just not knockback or defense. At this point in the game, you're probably level 10 combat, so your HP is already pretty high. Weapon speed can be particularly beneficial if you're using a hammer weapon, as those generally have a speed decrease. If you are using a critical-based build though, I wouldn't blame you if you got a few critical damage or critical chance ups. And the attack increase is just, in general, always good. Next, we talk about enchantments. Funnily enough, weapons can also be enchanted along with any other tools. To enchant anything, you'll need a prismatic shard and 20 cinder shards. If you haven't found any prismatic shards before, they can mostly be found deep in the skull caverns. Each iridium node will have a 4% chance of dropping one. When you enchant something, you will be given a random enchantment. There is no way to control what you get. Luckily though, it can be repeated. There are 5 possible enchantments for weapons. Artful, which gives you a 50% cooldown on your special moves. This is especially useful if you're using a hammer, which has a historically great special move. Bug Killer does double damage to grubs, flies, bugs, spiders, and rock crabs, and also allows you to kill the unkillable armored bugs in the skull cavern. If you're wondering, this is their drop rate. They don't give you anything special. This is one that I would probably only recommend if you're going through the hard version of the mines, as it's especially filled with bugs in that version. Crusader will give you 50% more damage to mummies, ghosts, skeletons, and void spirits, and also prevents mummies from reviving once you knock them out. I can't really think of any situation where this one would be especially useful, maybe in the Skull Cavern, but there's others that I would recommend. Speaking of which, you have the enchantment Vampiric. It gives you a 9% chance to regain health on kill. The amount healed will be about 10% of the monster's maximum HP. I'd say this one is probably the best if you're using either a sword or a dagger, as it can add a lot of longevity in the Skull Caverns. Lastly, there's Haymaker, which when cutting weeds gives you 50% chance for an extra fiber and a 33% chance for hay. I'd say just throw this onto a garbage weapon that you're only going to use for farming, oddly enough, and not your main combat weapon. Next we have tool enchantments. Every single one of your main tools can also be enchanted, and these can provide huge buffs to your productivity. Let's go over all of them in order. The axe can have 4 possible enchantments. Efficient, which prevents you from draining energy. Powerful, which adds extra damage when you use it against an enemy. Shaving, which gives you 3 extra wood from every type of tree, in addition to an extra chance for hardwood from stumps or extra produce from giant crops. And Swift, which makes you swing the tool 33% faster. Honestly, I'd ignore everything except for Shaving and Swift. If you get either of those, you're good. The purpose of your axe is to cut down trees and get wood, so whatever makes that faster is better. Next is the fishing rod. There's quite a few for this one that I would say are good. First is auto hook, which automatically hooks any fish whenever you get a bite. This of course just makes fishing easier. I absolutely recommend it. It also has efficient, which removes all energy drain. Again, this late into the game, I don't really see a point for that when you have so much energy. Master, which adds an extra fishing level to the player while held. Nothing wrong with that, that'll make your fishing bar larger, and it'll also allow you to throw your bobber farther. Preserving gives you a 50% chance that your bait and tackle won't be consumed on use. This one's really good, mainly because at this point in the game you're going to come across some more expensive types of bait, such as wild bait or magic bait, and that is still very valuable to you. So really the only thing for the fishing rod that I wouldn't recommend is efficient. Next for the hoe, there's Archaeologist, which doubles your chance of finding artifacts in artifact spots. This can be especially useful for finding all of the fossils on Ginger Island or finishing off your museum. Efficient, once again, no energy drain. Still not useful. Generous gives you a 50% chance of doubling your items found when digging. Not quite as useful as Archaeologist because now you'll have 2 of whatever item you find, but it's still good for money making. Reaching, which gives you another tier of area of effect. So if you have an Iridium hoe, remember that your maximum charge is a 3x6 range. With this, you'll have a 5x5 range. Not as far, but way wider. And once again, there's a Swift enchantment, which makes the tool use 33% faster. I always recommend that. This is another good situation where the only thing I wouldn't recommend is the energy drain. Next, we have the pickaxe. Once again, it has efficient. You don't want it. You have plenty of energy at this point in the game. You have powerful, which will deal extra damage. I'd hope that you're not using your pickaxe for combat, but there it is. And the only one that I really think is useful for the pickaxe is Swift. I would keep reforging until you get that. Obviously, that'll make your mining runs a ton faster. And lastly, the watering can. You can either get bottomless, which gives you infinite water, you'll never have to refill it again. This one's good. You have, once again, efficient. useless as always. And reaching just like the hoe. The iridium watering can has a maximum charge up of 3x6 tiles. With this, it'll also have 5x5 tiles, which just makes the process of watering that much quicker. If you ever want to take any of the enchantments or upgrades off of your weapon, there's a little X here on the bottom right. You can do that and it'll undo all of the work and give you back a few of the cinder shards. It won't give you all of them, but it'll still work. The last thing you can do is combine rings. All you have to do is put in 2 rings that you want to combine, and it'll cost 20 cinder shards to put them together. This will make it act as if you are wearing both rings at the same time. This increases the maximum amount of rings that you can have at one time, up to 4 from 2. The only rings that you cannot combine together are those of the exact same kind, so you can't have 2 ruby rings together, but on the other hand, you can combine an iridium ring and a ruby ring, which even though it still gives you the double attack buff, it is allowed to be combined. Honestly, here there's not many combinations that I would or would not recommend because rings are very personalized to you and how you want to play. Of course, I do think that the one and only must-have is the iridium ring crossed with the ruby ring because it just gives you such a huge attack power increase. Some other fun combinations I find are the hot java ring and the burglar's ring, just giving you tons of coffee drops. The crab shell ring and the ring of Yoba if you want to be absolutely unknockoutable. The vampire ring and the soul sapper ring to give you a boost to both HP and energy every time you knock out an enemy. Or the iridium band and the glowstone ring just for a lot of light and a lot of magnet. Just for fun, I combined 2 iridium rings with 2 glowstone rings, and it's almost like it's still daytime on default zoom settings. Just like everything else, if you want to unforge the rings, you can press the X on the bottom right, and it'll split them back to their individual parts. Hopefully I've shown you the true power of the forge, and you're now more inclined to use it to make your playthrough a little less frustrating. Thank you all for watching, and good night.